Okay, yeah, I'm ready to go. I just want to say hello to Santiago in Bogota. I used to live in Bogota, so I know that city very, very well. So task 1 we're looking at today. This is for the academic module. So we're looking at the charts, and we're looking at these charts where you have various different factors that you have to talk about, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to to know how to tackle it. All right, so that's what we're going to have a look at today. All right, so looking at these complex charts, we're going to look at the structure for the task 1, and we're also going to look at the kind of language that you can use when you get this particular question. So the first thing we're going to do is just have a bit of an overview of the task 1. Okay, so I've got some true false sentences here. So if you look at number 1, would you say that that is true or false? It's a set of data, a set of information, and you have to write a description. Is that true or false? Okay, very good. So the first one is true. Yeah. Okay, and we can be talking about a diagram, we can be talking a process, some kind of chart. Is that true or false? Good. Yes, also true. Minimum word count. Okay, yeah, definitely not 200. Minimum word count is 150. Very important to be over 150. You do lose a lot of marks for being under the word count. There is no maximum word count, but generally speaking, you don't need to write much more than 150. Okay. Amount of time that you should spend on this task. Okay, good. So they do recommend 20 minutes maximum. The task 2 is more difficult, takes longer, and is worth more marks. So it's better to spend longer on the task 2 and try and get your task 1 done in just 20 minutes. Okay, whoops. So you should add some kind of interpretation or analysis of the data. No, very emphatic no there from Axif. Yeah. No interpretation, no analysis, purely description. Okay, very, very important. Any opinions? Okay, very good. More emphatic. Yeah, so no opinions, no interpretation, no analysis, just description. Okay. Okay, so you report the main features, you make comparisons. Okay, very good. Yeah, very, very important. So you don't always have to write down every single thing, but you do have to always have the main features and make some comparisons. And you should write a conclusion. Ooh, got a bit of a, this one is it. Oh, no. Stop shouting at me, actually. No conclusion. Okay, you do not write a conclusion. A conclusion means giving your opinion. Okay, so definitely no conclusion. All right, you are going to write an overview, which is not the same. Okay, so no conclusion, no opinion, completely different. Yes, okay. So let's have a look. So this is the example that we are going to look at. So just take a minute to look at that. Yeah. And this is the title of the chart that we're looking at. So very important, particularly with these complex charts where there's quite a lot of information, is to just spend a couple of minutes looking at it, making sure you've got the right information. Okay, so let's have a look at some questions. So what is the topic of this chart? What are we looking at here? Okay, so employment, give me a bit more. The employment rate. Yeah, a little bit more about it. What else? Employment rate, where? Okay, yeah, in 2 different years. Okay, so what is the measurement that we are looking at here? Okay, what kind of, okay, good. So it's per percentage. Okay, so the data is presented in percentages. Very, very important to check the measurements, because it's a really common mistake for people to write it incorrectly, particularly to use percentages when there aren't any. Okay. So what kind of different groups are we looking at here? Okay, somebody lit has already said we're comparing males and females. What else are we comparing? Okay, good. We're comparing 2 different years as well, and we're comparing different countries. Okay, so we've got 3 sets of data here that we need to include in our answer. Okay. Are we describing a change over time? Yes, so we've got 1995 and we've got 2005. Yeah, so we've got a 10-year time period that we have to talk about. Okay, so, you know, and what kind of tenses, if we think about that time period, what are we going to, yes, so past simple, maybe some past perfects. Okay, but that's what we're looking at. There's no projection, no present. And do make sure that you're consistent with your tenses, okay? Another very common mistake is for people to mix up. They start in the past, then they move to the present, and then they go back to the past. So be very, very consistent with your tenses, okay? So a couple of minutes just looking at the chart, just making sure you're 100% sure about, you know, what you're looking at here and the different things that you need to compare. Okay. So, and then you need to think about the key features. So remember, this is what's going to go in the overview, and this is going to be the main part of your answer, what you really need to focus on. So trends, patterns, and events. So that would be 1 year, for example, where things were very different to the other years. All right. So, and keep it down. Okay, you don't want to have too much information in the overview. It's really the biggest trends, most important trends that you can see. Okay. So let's have a look at this. So in terms of movement, what can we say about the difference between the 2 years? What kind of movement do we have? Yeah, okay, exactly, Sky. In every case, we have an increase. We have an increase in all of the countries. We have an increase in the gender. Okay, so that's clearly going to be a very key trend that we can talk about. Okay. Are there any high points that we could bring out there, do you think? Anything particularly? Yeah, so the highest point of all is the males in Iceland. That is the highest one. And what would be the lowest point? I think somebody already put it. Yeah, Sky already put it. Yeah, so New Zealand and women in this case. Okay. But we don't have massive differences here. I think if you look at it, we've got, you know, fairly similar figures across the board. Okay. Any similarities? Anything that we can say is the same? If we think about the comparison, maybe males and females. Anything that we can say which is true in every case if we look at the males and the females? Yeah, okay, good. Garnet got there. So males generally, I think in every case, actually, yeah, in every case, males have a higher employment rate than females, okay? Very nice language there, Tran. Outstrip, the number of males outstrips the number of females, okay? So these are the things we can say. So always more men than women across the board, all of the countries. Increase in terms of countries and gender, okay? And you know, the women, I think if you look at the women, there's quite a lot of variety there. And that's something you can say in the overview as well. So don't be worried about saying, you know, there's no consistency or there's no pattern or there's a lot of variety. If that is the case, that's something that you can say as well. Okay. It is quite complicated, you're right. But the thing is to break it down and look at it one by one. So compare males and females. So we can say the figures for males are always higher than the figures for females. We can say that there's always an increase between 1995 and 2005. But we can also say that it's quite hard to make a general trend for the women, because we've got quite a lot of variety in the figures there. Okay. All right, so let's keep going. So structure of our task one, this is the same for all of the task ones. So introduction, followed by the overview, and then followed by the body. Quite good to divide the body up into 2 paragraphs, maybe 3 paragraphs, depending on what you're talking about. It's just easier for the examiner to look at that. You can also put the overview at the end of your answer if you want to. That's a choice. It doesn't make any difference to your score. Okay. So in terms of the introduction, we're going to say the topic of the chart. I'm going to keep that very, very short. Okay, we don't want to put too much information in the introduction. Okay, what are we going to put in the overview? What is the overview? What's the purpose of the overview? Okay, good, yeah, it's the main trends, okay, the general trends, those things that we just had a look at, the key features, or the highlights, exactly, Ankit, yeah. Okay, and again, fairly short, you don't want to put any detail in here, no figures, okay, just the overall trends, okay, okay. Okay, the introduction, Akshith, is only one or maximum 2 sentences in the introductory sentence. We'll have a look at an example in a moment, okay? And then what do we put in the body? What's the key? What are we focusing on in the body? Yeah, okay, so good. The comparison side and Garnet, the details. So this is where you put the figures. This is where you talk about the details, you make the comparisons, okay, and you talk about the actual figures, okay. This is going to be the majority of your answer, probably about 10 sentences, 8 or 10 sentences altogether. Specific data, specific examples, okay. So very important to divide the overview from the body, okay. So we're going to look at the introduction now, okay? So you're always given a title. Basically, your introduction is just to give the title, to give the topic of the chart, but without using the words in the task question, okay? If you use the words in the task question, it's not included in your word count, okay? And you may actually be under the word count when you think you're over, all right? So very important to try and change those words, okay? What are some of the different ways that we can paraphrase? Okay, so the first one is synonyms. So that's important, using different words, but there are other ways to paraphrase. How else can we paraphrase? Okay, good. So we can change from passive to active or active to passive. Yeah, we can change the sentence structure. So rephrase the sentences. Okay, very good. We can change the words, so word formation, or rearrange the words, okay? So remember, it's not just synonyms. A mistake that a lot of candidates make is really focusing on synonyms and actually ending up writing rather odd words because they're trying so hard to use synonyms. So think about grammar and word formation as well, and adding a word in. That's all paraphrasing. That's all going to work very, very well. Okay. So yes, exactly, Manda. Explain it in a different style. Don't just think synonyms, synonyms. No idioms in the writing, Mohammed. In the academic writing, there is no, they're informal, so there's no room for idioms, I'm afraid, only in the speaking. Okay, so let's have a look at how we could do this. Okay, everybody's already going ahead. So these are the kind of words that we can rewrite. So a different way of saying shows. Okay, yeah, we're already there. I know a few. So yeah, illustrates works very well. Depicts works very well as well. Represents, yeah, very simple. So that's a straightforward synonym, just changing it, yeah. So how else could we write employment rates? What's another way of describing that? Okay, we have to do the whole, yeah, so we could use them something like labor force or workforce. We could use proportion. Okay, okay, good. We can even just change it around, very good, Manda, like rates of employment. Okay, that shows that you understand that you can use it in both ways. So that works very, very well. Okay, so we've gone for the percentage of people in employment. Okay, but lots of good expressions there. And then what about countries? How could we, okay, yeah, very good. So yeah, so you can use nations instead of countries. We can also add in here by gender. So another thing to do is to add in a bit more detail than there is in the task question. Again, that's changing it in some way, and it's good use of language. And then we've gone for nations and also added in both 1995 and 2005. Okay, you could say according to gender, yeah. Okay, so, you know, some quite small changes can actually work very, very well. Yeah, you could say over a 10-year period, something like that. All right, so don't focus just solely on synonyms. Think about changing the grammar, changing the word formation as well. Yeah, that works fine with WKL. Okay. Yeah, and that is enough, really. The introduction is very, very short. There's not really anything about the introduction in the examiner's band descriptors, so you really don't want to spend too much time on it. Just get the information there as quickly as you can, but do paraphrase. Don't just copy the words from the task. Okay, it's very rarely more than one sentence, the introduction. Yeah. Okay. All right. So different ways, we've just got some other ones here. So we can also say compares, because we are doing a comparison here. We could say between men and women rather than by gender. So there's many different ways that we can do it. Okay. All right. So make sure you've got that. Yeah, it's pretty short. It's what, 12 words, something like that. Yeah. Really not necessary. Okay, between 1995 and, okay, got to get your prepositions right there. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a look at the overview now. So that's the introduction. Just do that very quickly as you can. So in terms of the overview, this is super, super important. Okay, very, very important to get a good overview. So we're going to have a look now at the band descriptors from 5 till 7. Okay, so you can see band 5, there is no clear overview. Okay, that doesn't mean there's no overview. It means that the overview is there, but it's not easy for the examiner to see where that overview is. Okay, having a clear overview would be a band 6. A band 7 would mean that you had made a very clear distinction between the main trends, which go in the overview, and the details and figures which go in the body. So if there appears to be some confusion or some mix between the overview, the main trends and the details, it would be impossible to get a 7. Okay. So for the overview, separate paragraph, very important. Begin it with overall, very important, and only include the overall trends, also very, very important. Okay, so let's have a look in a bit more detail. Okay, yeah, it's kind of a static chart, Pachu, yeah, because it's not a line graph, but we do have a little bit of movement there as well. Okay, so remember we already looked at our key features at the beginning, something to do before we go on with the writing the introductory sentence. Okay, and this is what you're going to put in the overview. So those 3 things that we talked about beforehand. I'll tell you in a minute, Eileen. So remember, more men than women in all cases, increase in all cases, and quite a lot of variation for women. So these are the 3 things we're going to put in the overview. Okay. Just before we do that, we're going to have a little look at a language. A bit of suspense there. So one of the things about the charts is sometimes you are dealing with countable words like people or countries or children, and sometimes you're dealing with uncountable situations, so like oil or production or generation. So you've got to make sure you get the right language, the right grammar with those 2 different things. Okay, so some words we can use in both cases, but some we can only use with countable and some only with uncountable. Okay, so if you look at the words on the left hand side, which words would you say you can only use with countable? Okay, very good. Yeah, definitely fewer. Okay, and many as well. Okay. And what about uncountable? What words only work with uncountable? Okay, very good. Yeah, less and much. Okay, so let's have a look. I'll just put them up for you. Okay, also the majority of you can only use with countable nouns. Okay, so be careful with that. Okay, that's all of them. Good. Yeah, so fewer versus less and many versus much. Those are probably the most important ones. So do practice that and do think about that when you're doing your practice tests. Am I describing a countable word here or an uncountable word? Okay. So countable, as it sounds like, it means you can count it. So countries, you can have 1 country, 2 countries, 3 countries, 4 countries. That is a countable noun. Okay, could be people, could be children, anything you can count. If it's a material or a substance, you can't count it. You can't say 2 oils or 2 productions, then it's uncountable. Okay. But that is also something that if you're not sure about it, we don't really have time to do it in detail at the moment, is to go and check that out and make sure that you're comfortable with the countable and uncountable. Okay. So let's have a look at the overview. Okay, so all important word, overall. Okay, always start your overview with overall. You do not need to do anything else. That will work. Okay, and it's not a conclusion, so don't write in conclusion. Just make sure it's overall. Okay, so what can we put in the missing word? So first of all, we're going to talk about the men. Okay, yeah, okay, so a higher number, a higher percentage of men, a higher proportion of men, were employed, okay, in all 6 countries. In in both years, okay, in both years, okay. Both examined years, Sandra, that's very nice as well, yeah, okay. I like that. First name, last name, someone's come in as, I like that. Okay, so next point. So we had always an increase. So employment for both genders, yeah, increased in what goes in front of nation. Remember it says here, be careful with your grammar, nation, not nations. What are we going to put in front of nation? Okay, very good. Henry, yeah, each nation over the period, yeah, or every would work as well. Okay, but only each or every works in front of nation. Every works as well, yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, you can say all nations, but we had nation up, so we were just checking your grammar there a bit. Okay, and then finally, so how can we move on to the next bit? So we've got something that's always the same, and then we're moving on to something where we don't have any consistency. Okay, good, yeah, so however, okay, you're moving from consistency to inconsistency, so there's a contrast there. On the other hand would work as well, okay? The proportion, the number, okay? Again, make sure you're not repeating the same word. So if you used proportion with men, use percentage with women, or if you use number with men, use proportion with women, but don't use the same vocabulary, okay? Okay, so that varied, okay, yeah, maybe dramatically, widely, enormously, yeah, significantly, anything like that, yeah, tremendously, substantially, okay, you're getting a bit over there. Keep it quite simple, yeah, significantly or tremendously, I think are probably the best things to use there. Okay, or drastically, yeah. Okay, so if you look at that, you can see there are no figures there, there are no details, there's no mention of any one country or any one year. Okay, so it's definitely an overall description. Really, really important. Keep your overall trends separate from your detail. Okay, that is how you get a 7 as opposed to a 6. Okay, so that's your overview. So 3 sentences, maybe what, 30 words, I think, something like that, and that's enough. Okay. So we have some linking expressions. Okay. So overall, other linking expressions. Okay, good. And then however, so always remember, equally with the task 1, you know, sometimes people forget that you need to use linking expressions in task 1 just as much as you do in task 2. Okay. Okay, what time expressions do you notice there? Okay, time expressions, yeah, okay, not the tenses, we're coming to that. Yeah, so in both years and over the period. So again, when you're talking about time expressions, don't use the same one, vary them, use a different one every time, okay? And then as we said, we have nation, we've gone for plural, then we've also gone for singular. So again, you know, this shows that you understand the different uses, you can manipulate the language in that way. Yeah, so try not to always say all the time, but say each, sometimes say every, various. Okay. Okay, and then we have some language for expressing quantities. So what expressions can you see there related to Okay, yeah, we've got a higher percentage than, so we've got a comparison, and we've got a proportion. Okay, so again, variety, not repeating the same words. Yeah, okay, yeah, we got increase to talk about the movement as well. Okay, all right. So then we move on to the details. So clear distinction. Okay, so this is our two body paragraphs. Okay, so we've got, as we said, these are complex charts. We're comparing quite a lot of different information here. So if we had two body paragraphs, how could we divide those two paragraphs up? What factors could you look at? Okay, good. So yeah, you could take 1995 and then 2005. You could take males and then you could take females. You could start with the highest and then you could go to the lowest. Yeah, so there are different ways that you can do it. None of them is right or more right than anything else, but the thing is that once you choose the way that you're going to organize your paragraphs, stick to it. Okay, don't start by saying, okay, I'm going to talk about men and then start talking about the years. So make sure you know exactly how you're organizing it and stick to that throughout. Okay, so we've decided to go with men and women. Generally speaking, it's easier to go with the one where there's less variety. So you could do countries, but that's going to probably get a bit confusing because you have to go through 6 different sections then. Okay, yeah, so the highest percentage of men. So we start with the biggest number. Okay, easy way to do it. Start with the biggest number. Okay, with a rate of around, okay, yeah, in 1995, yeah, 1995, not 2005. Okay, so here we've got specific country, specific number. Yeah, very different from the overview. All right, and then what happened? So we started at 70. What's the missing word? Think about your your grammar here, sorry. Yes, smoothly, got it right. Rising to, okay. Participle, rising to above 80% in 2005, okay. And then how can we move on? So we started with Iceland, then how can we move on? Climbing would work fine, climbing would work fine, yeah. Any of those words, you know, increasing, but you got to use the ing, okay. Okay, good. So we've got a contrast there. So we've gone with in contrast, or, you know, something like that. The UK had the, okay, the lowest male employment rate. Okay, so we basically highlighted the biggest and the smallest number because those are the most important numbers. Okay, and again, we've got the specific figure, 55%. Okay, then we can go to the next year. So what can we put next? Got another contrast. Remember, it's a linking phrase, it's not a conjunction. Yeah, okay, so however, this had increased to, okay, yeah, approximately, yeah, approximately or nearly, something like that. So use the approximate language as well. Okay, it's really good. Roughly, almost, approximately, around, all of those words work really, really well. Okay, all right, reaching a, comparing to Australia. Okay, thank you very much, Neo. A similar level to Australia, New Zealand, and the USA. Okay, so we have specific figures for the highest one, we have specific figures for the lowest one, but then the ones in the middle, we don't really need to worry about those too much, so we can group those together and just talk about them as one group, okay? So another really important point when you have the complex charts, if you have a lot of categories, rather than look at each category individually, try and put them in groups with similar figures, okay? A lot easier to talk about 3 groups than, you know, 10 individual categories, which is going to talk, which is going to be, contrast is however, Mohammed. Okay, so groups rather than individual countries if you have a lot of categories to talk about. Okay, so linking expressions we have in contrast. What else do we have? Okay, we have however, expressing quantities. What else? Okay. Okay, more like the comparisons to talk about them. Okay, highest percentage. Okay, what else are we using to talk about quantity? Okay, yeah, a rate of around 70%. We've got lowest. Okay, we've got approximately. So we've got percentages. We've got approximate language. Okay. You can't use but to start a sentence, okay? You can only use but in the middle of the sentence. At the beginning of the sentence, we need to use a linking phrase, okay? Which would be however or in contrast, okay? You don't need to mention everything, okay? I think, again, that's quite a common mistake that people make. They think I've got to mention every figure and every change and everyone. Okay, but not necessary. What you do need to include is the highest, the lowest, things that are similar and things that are different. Okay, I'm gonna have to move a bit for, other than however, Smriti, you can use in contrast. You can say, what else could you say? In contrast, by contrast. Yeah, those all work. Okay, but not although, not but. They are not linking phrases. Okay. All right. And notice here also that we've got a range of tenses that we're dealing with. So we're using the ing form sometimes. We're using the past simple to give the figures. And if you use by, you can also use the past perfect, which gives a nice little bit of variety there. Okay, so by 2005, this had increased to 70%. Okay, so that means you're not just using the past simple there. Okay. So the second one, so then we talked about men. Now we're going to talk about women. So this is our second paragraph. So we've moved on to something else. So the country with the, okay, good. So again, start with the biggest figure, yeah. Okay, with the workforce, and again, give the specific number, 55% and the year, okay. Usually with proportion or percentage, we need to use high or low, okay. We don't really, you can say greatest proportion, that works well. Biggest, I would not sure, but greatest would be better. You can use ratio, Henry, but not ration. That's a different word. Okay. All right, good. Yeah, rising to or increasing to, going up to. Yeah, you could put approximate. You could say approximately 55%, nearly 55%. Okay. All right. This, what can we put in here? Yeah, climbing works. Climbing works fine. What are we going to put in the next gaps? So we're talking about Switzerland, and then we have to look at Australia and New Zealand. Okay, thank you. First name, last name. This contrasts sharply with Australia and New Zealand. So you're getting the comparison, okay? So here we're going from the highest and then we're going to the lowest, okay? We're just over a, what are we going to put in the gap there? Remember, see, notice we've got an there. Okay, very good, Mary Giovanna. A quarter of the workforce were female, okay? So again, very important, if your measurements are in percentages, then try and use some fractions, okay? Because that shows a greater use of the language than simply copying out the percentages. Anybody can copy out the percentages. Using fractions shows a higher level of language there, okay? And then that's 1995. This figure, what can we put there? This figure, okay, and we're going from a quarter to 40. Okay, had increased. Remember, we got by 2005, so we're going to use our past perfect, to around 40%, okay? Had risen, had climbed would also work fine, okay? So you can use a good range of language there, okay? All right, so again, we're not talking about all of the countries, we're talking about the most important ones. The rest is past simple, yeah. Rose is fine, or had risen if you're going to use the past perfect, okay? Every time we use by, you always use the past perfect, okay? Because it's before that event in the past, okay? So don't think you have to mention everything, just pick the key things. You can either go first, the highest number, and then talk about the lowest. So you can just go from top to bottom, or you could go highest, second highest, next one after that, and finish with the lowest ones. Again, the only thing that really matters is that you have a system and that you stick with the system, okay? Can't really get into whole tenses here, but maybe we can do that in the Q&A, okay? So again, linking expressions, variety of linking expressions, not just linking phrases, but other things as well. Different kinds of language to represent the quantities, okay? And then past simple, but also we've got a nice past perfect there as well. Okay, so there is the full answer. Okay, and there's some tips which you can have a look at while we are doing the questions. Okay, thanks, Jamie.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for that, Annelie. Well done. And thank you, guys. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. So great work. I've just been tapping away, helping to answer some of your questions here. So we'll get onto them in a moment. I can see that some of you have your test coming up soon as well. So Nagina, I can see as well. I don't know if you can see anyone else in the chat, Annelie, that has their test coming up.
I actually saw Thapas just said that he took it and he got 7.5, and he was nice enough to say thank you to us. So thank you very much, Thapas, and I'm very, very happy that you got what you needed to get. That's a really good score. 7.5 is an excellent score in writing, yeah, and not easy.
Yeah, that's excellent. Well done. Congratulations. Yeah. Any tips you have on the test you'd like to share with other students? It would be great to hear from you. So yeah, well done. Also, if you took the computer-based test, it would be good to hear more about that and your experience of that too, because we have a lot of students asking about the computer-delivered test. So guys, we have some time now to for a Q&A. You can ask us any questions about the writing task 1 or any general questions about IELTS as well. If you can add those questions to the Q&A, we will tackle those questions first of all. Before we do that, I would just like to do a bit of promotion for our speaking and writing evaluation service that we offer on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. I've put the link to those in the chat just now. If you have some writing you would like to check to see what your score is, what your current band score, you can send your writing into us via the website. One of our examiners will read through your writing and they will give you an estimated band score on the basis of that. We can also give you feedback on your performance, your strengths and weaknesses in the different criteria, any common grammar errors that you're making. And this kind of thing can really help you to improve your score. So we offer a similar service for speaking as well. And you can, it does cost money, Garnet. It's a premium service. It allows us to offer these webinars for free. So if you're interested, you can take a look on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. We offer a reading and listening video lesson as well, and I'll put the link to the chat, put the link in the chat as well. So now that we've done that, I think we can take a look at some of these questions. Annelie, I don't know, can you hear me okay? Because my screen, okay, excellent. My screen's just frozen. So yeah, hopefully, yeah, I'll.
Oh, Jamie, are you there? I think we lost Jamie for a moment. All right, let's see if we can tackle. Oh.
Am I back now?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay, great. So Nagina is saying, I have my first mock exam on Sunday. I'm really nervous about it. Can you suggest something for me to help me relax and feel more confident about my exam?
First mock exam or first exam?
They've said it's their first mock exam, so I'm not sure if that means, yeah, a practice exam. I guess if it's a practice exam, then there's no need to feel nervous, Nagina. It's just for practice. So yeah, if it's your actual exam, any suggestions there, Annelie?
For nerves, it's quite hard. I mean, be well prepared. That's the most important thing. Try to have, you know, done as much practice as possible. Look at as many different writing tasks and different reading, listening papers, speaking tasks as you can. And then you will feel more comfortable and know that, you know, whatever comes up, probably you've already looked at it. And then, you know, you've already tried it. That's the most important thing. Try to be calm. Everybody else is feeling the same. And I know it's hard to say anything, you know. Usually when it starts, actually the nerves go because then you're focused. The worst time is before it starts because you can't actually do anything. So just remember that once you get in there and you get started, you'll be fine because you'll just be in it. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Maybe just remembering to breathe as well, to stretch, you know, try to take control of your body, and that will help your mind to relax as well. And you can go in and be confident. And also in the speaking exam, you know, don't be afraid of the examiner. They are all just English teachers. They want you to succeed, and, you know, just smile and chat to them, you know, normally, and you'll be fine. Okay, so let's move on. We've got quite a few questions coming in. We have a question here about vocabulary. This is from Jabber. He's asking, how can I increase my writing vocabulary?
Yeah, best way to increase your writing vocabulary is to read as much as possible. Particularly, I mean, if you're thinking specifically about the IELTS, you know, academic articles, there's a huge variety of websites out there that you can go. Always good if you do things that interest you, because then you're going to be, you know, you'll be more keen to actually continue doing that. Then try and record the new vocabulary that you come across. And also try and produce it as well, you know, make it active vocabulary. And also don't just learn individual words, because we don't use words in isolation. We always use them in a structure. So make sure you have the structure as well, okay? And that you understand how those words work, how they fit together, what goes together, what doesn't go together, okay?
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. Definitely learning collocations, so word combinations rather than individual words is a great way to boost your vocabulary. Excellent. I'm just seeing in the chat, Tapas, you've given us some feedback on your computer-based test. Could you change your settings so that it says all panelists and attendees? And then that will let everybody see your response there. But basically, Tapas is saying, I took the computer-based exam. I think it's much easier to attend than the paper-based. There's no need to count the words in the writing section, but you should have a good typing speed. The listening and reading sections were easy and similar to the mock tests provided on our website, IELTSonlinetest.com. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Tapas. I'm glad you found the website helpful. And yeah, it's good to know, you know, the computer-based test does seem to work for some people. Yeah, excellent. Got some questions about the writing evaluation. All the details about that are available on our website. So I'll put the link in the chat there and you can check that out in your own time, okay? Let's see. Ashmit is asking, can we arrange some classes for task 2 writing? What do you think, Annelie?
Yeah, there's a lot up there already. We've done quite a few of those, and we'll be doing a lot more, I'm sure, over the coming weeks. Yeah. So
yeah.
And all other aspects of the IELTS test.
Definitely. You can see the upcoming lessons via our website. I've put the link to that in the chat as well, so you'll be able to see the different academic task 2 webinars we have coming up. Let's see. Question here about, this is from first name, last name. It says, in the example, we've said almost always more men than women, but not always. Do we lose points if we say all? So I think this is about how accurate you need to be when you're describing the graph. If you say, you know, all countries, men are more employed than women, then, and actually there's one exception, will you be penalized for that?
You do have to be accurate for task achievement. The information should be accurate. I mean, I think that would be a very small mistake, and probably that wouldn't affect your score if everything else was right. Most important things with the accuracy is make sure you get the measurement right. Yeah, because that's a big mistake that people make. You know, make sure that you know what the figures are, and the overall, make sure that your main trends are correct. So don't put things are going down if they're going up, or this is higher if it's not. But, you know, if there's very small things, I don't think that's really going to make a, you know, a huge difference if your other areas are working well.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Let's see, guys, we're coming up to the end of the session today, so we'll just have time for a couple more quick questions. Hale is asking, how can I practice listening efficiently? One thing I would say, Hale, is that we do have a video course explaining the listening strategy for different types of question. That's available on our website. It is called IELTS Explained, and we go through all the different tests on our website and explain the listening strategy for different question types. So that might be a good introduction for you about different strategies you can use for listening. We have a question here from Artias. Artias is asking, is it better to start with task 2 than task 1?
I mean, that's hard to say. I think it's a personal choice. You certainly can, because you get both tasks at the same time. I think again, the most important thing to do is to practice. Practice within the time limit. Try doing it task 1 followed by task 2. Try doing it task 2 followed by task 1. And for you, you know, see which one works best for you. If you would feel calmer and more comfortable if you knew that you had already got task 2 done and finished, then do that. Yeah, start with task 2, and you know, then you can go on to the task 1. But I think that's a personal choice. I don't think that makes any difference, really.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. Basically, if you practice one way and you're comfortable with that, then I would stick with it in the test. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
don't do anything different in the test.
Yeah.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah, definitely. I think some students like to use task 1 as a kind of warm up for task 2. So that's fine as long as you leave enough time. Then you'll be grand. Okay, thank you guys. I can see some of you are having to leave us, so thank you, May. Thanks for your feedback. Thanks, Noel, as well. We have come up to the end of the session today, so I would just like to say a very big thank you to Annelie for presenting, guiding us through this complex chart. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good luck for those who've got your test coming up. And well done, Tapas.
Yeah, well done. Congrats. And yeah, please, guys, let us know if you do take your test. If you get the result you need, or if you don't, give us some feedback. Let us know how you get on. Okay. If you have any questions that we haven't covered in this session, you can add them to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page. If you could also give us a like, a subscribe, or a share, that would be brilliant. It helps us to keep offering these webinars for free. So we really appreciate that. So thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again in another one of our webinars soon. Cheers, guys. Yep.
Bye,
see
everyone.
You guys soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Annelie. See you soon.
Take care. Thanks, Jamie. Take
Cheers.
care.
Bye, guys.
Everyone. Cheers.